Okay, hello, I'm Beverly Chambers, founder and CEO of I Want to Be a Fashion Buyer.com, which I set up with the purpose of being a conduit between the retail industry and young talent. We run a unique 6-month fashion buying and planning program where our students study with us and intern 1 or 2 days a week with some of our fabulous intern partners, two of which we have here. And joining me today are going to be 3, I hope, highly credentialed merchandise planning professionals. Firstly, we have Natalie Wood, General Manager, Merchandise Planning and Pricing at Michael Hill. Like me, Natalie hails from the UK and started her career with Arcadia and has worked for a number of premium retailers, including Ralph Lauren, Browns, and The Fold in London. So welcome, Natalie.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And we also have, just in time, that was perfect timing, Lindsay. Lindsay Horlock, Group Planning Manager at Suzanne Group. Lindsay has worked for the Suzanne Group for the past 20 years, and prior to that, worked in the UK for Debenhams, Tesco, House of Fraser, and Mothercare. And we both used to work for Mothercare, but I think I was there before you, Lindsay. And so welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you, Beverly. Sorry, I was having a few technical issues, hence I was a little bit late.
No problem. And lastly, we have Tanya Owens. Tanya is originally from South Africa, where she worked for over 15 years with Edcon before moving to Australia with Super Retail Group. So welcome, Tanya.
Hello.
All right. So we're going to start with the big question, which was the title of our workshop. So for those that are unfamiliar with the function, what is merchandise planning? So who'd like to go first and answer that big question?
I'm happy to go first, Beverly. So I think the way to explain merchandise planning is often boiled down to getting the right stock in the right place at the right time. But I think that's quite a simplistic way to look at it. I actually think merchandise planning is the pivotal department in any retail business. I would, obviously, and I'm sure.
And I would agree with you, Natalie.
But essentially, our job is to make sure the business is as profitable as possible and gets the best return on their inventory investment as possible. I don't know if you guys want to add to that.
Would either of you like to add anything to that?
Well, I would completely agree with everything that Natalie said, and it's a really pivotal role in terms of the business. It's working incredibly closely with the buying team. And I always say you can't have a buying team without a planning team, but you actually can't have a planning team without a buying team either. So the two are really, really locked in together and have to work incredibly closely together to make utilize all that inventory to make it as profitable as possible. Absolutely.
Okay, so can we just explain what the different roles are? Because obviously not everybody is a planning manager or a planner or whatever. Can we just talk about the different roles and just a brief explanation of what each role level is responsible for?
Yeah. Well, I know that, Beverly, we talked about this last week, and I think that's one of the confusing things of the industry is that there isn't a standardization of the name of each title, which is often confusing. When I started back in the UK, it actually was pretty standardized and everybody started as an allocator. Effectively, that's sending the stock, bringing the stock into the country, sending it out to the DC to the stores. Here, probably a merchandise assistant or planning assistant is the most common title for that entry role into the planning team. Then from there, you would move up to probably a trainee planner role. I think probably that's the utilised term across the industry here. And that's really your sort of first step into owning a department, planning the sales, the inventory levels for that department, and trading that department in the season that you're in. From there, you would move into a planner role, picking up a few more departments or potentially a division. Within the groups that I work with, generally the planners will look after all of apparel or all of sleepwear and have a multiple departments that feed into them there. And then you would move into a planning manager role, so effectively heading up the whole of a brand. Or if you're in a very big company, potentially a planning manager may look after the home division of Kmart, something like that.
Okay. And how do the buying team and planning team work together? How does that operate? So what's the sort of division do you feel?
I think, oh, sorry, Tanya.
No, go on, Ashley. All good.
I think the buying and planning team is a real partnership. For people that don't understand the two roles, it's the buyer's responsibility to select the right stock for the business and for the customer to achieve our objectives. And the planner kind of supports them with the analysis. So they build the range together, and it's actually a unique role in the business because you get to partner so closely with someone and have joint accountability for your KPIs, which is it's actually a lovely thing about the role of buyer and planner. I often joke actually that if the range were completely selected by buyers, it would be a range of pink tutus, but if the range were completely selected by planners, it would be a range of black trousers and white t-shirts, which nobody wants. So the combination of the two makes the ultimate range for the business and the customer. Sorry, Tanya, you go.
And I think the other way I've always grown up thinking about it is you're the same side, different sides of the same coin. So the buying side looking at products, at trend, what's the best colors, what's the new shape, what's the new thing out there in the markets, and where do I source it? So facing very supplier facing, and the negotiations and the talking and the working with production and suppliers, where your planner is all about, we need so much of this thing, buyer, there you go, find it. And how much do you need stores? Because we're in charge and in the planning function, we're in charge of a really critical part of getting stock to stores in the right volume and the right product to the right place, because you will never sell like fleecy baby sweaters up in cans. So if you get that wrong, you destroy the profitability of your range as well. So the planner then being the side that's focused on stores and on quantification of the buy and how we make our stock more productive. Because as a retailer, the biggest expenditure, the biggest liability that a retailer has is in inventory. And so instead of cash in the bank that a retailer can put away and earn interest on, they invest that money in stock to make a return. So it's very, very, very important that investment in the right thing is delivering the return more profitably than it would be to put cash in the bank.
That's a great answer. And Tanya, I also use the two sides of the same coin because I think it's that close, isn't it? That the buyer, and I come from the buying background and started in the UK and always had a planner, and started in 1987 and was always a planner or a merchandiser as they called then. And the closer that you can be, for me, is you are absolutely almost, it's like a marriage.
It is absolutely like a marriage, yeah.
Okay, so each of you have had at least 20 years in your career. How do you feel the role of merchandise planner has changed since you started your career?
I think, so for me, I only think that the profile of the planning team has been raised since I started my career and has become more important. Particularly, I spent quite a portion of my career in the UK, and once the UK hit recession and was in recession for a number of years, businesses realised that actually overspending on inventory was a luxury no one could afford anymore. So planning really came to the fore, and we're at the forefront of all of the exec conversations, and the control of inventory became such a huge issue. I think we're about to hit a similar point in the Australian market. And so for me, having a seat at the table and kind of being included in very strategic senior conversations has only amped up over the years. I think in fashion businesses, it was always seen as quite an important function, but somehow buying always just seemed a little bit more glamorous and just seemed to have a little bit more airtime. And I just think it's really, for me, switched the other way in recent years as the economy's become tougher.
Yeah, and I think that probably the last 2 years, with all the issues we've had around COVID and logistics issues, the brunt of all of that over the last 2 years has really fallen on the planning teams. And being able to understand where that inventory is, what do we need, are stores closing, opening? I mean, the planning has really come into the fore over the last 2 years, and I think every retailer would not have survived and come out the other end without a strong planning team.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree.
I think also interesting is that it hasn't changed much in the actual critical path of what we do, and how our plan in 2001 is the same. What the steps that we follow is exactly the same as we do today. So that the critical path and the process that you follow is similar. Technology has potentially improved, so the systems that you get to help you, and the investment companies make. So planning, particularly in Australia, coming from a place like South Africa, where planning was always very prominent, was always front and center, watching that progression here in Australia, as you were mentioning, Natalie. But then I think the little piece about online, which has changed our world a little bit as well, just a tiny bit, in trying to understand how do we ensure we get the stock to the online, and how do we, there's all those questions that we're still trying to figure out about how best do we keep our online channel profitable. Because it's often not. You don't think about all those hidden costs involved in, getting stock to the customer.
And I think you're absolutely right, because if you think of traditional retail or bricks and mortar retail, it is set up to deliver stock to DCs and from DCs to stores. And that's why the pure play online retailers who set their business up to deliver their stock to the individual customer, but as if you're an omni-channel retailer, you now have to do both, and it is an extra level of complexity that actually, without the planner, you would not be able to do that.
We've actually invested in that, and we just have one person for the 3 brands, but we actually have an e-commerce planner now that is looking across the e-commerce and managing that inventory and helping having a dotted line back into the brands and the planners within the brands to quantify and make sure that we really getting that right, because if you get it wrong, it's very hard. We have a separate DC, so it's very hard to get the stock out of that DC back to the stores where you might potentially need it. So it's really crucial role now.
Okay. So with merchandise planning, there's the pre-season planning process, which I'd like to sort of talk about. What factors do you take, or your teams, you run teams, what factors are they taking into consideration when planning for a new season? And how far out do you start planning?
Our critical path at Michael Hill is actually quite long. So the product development for jewelry is quite a long critical path. So it's probably 9 or 10 months out that we start planning. But really, as soon as the period ends, we'll start to do that post-season analysis. And I think it's a really good question, Beverly, because the thing to get across is that the planning role, really at the heart of what we do is analysis. We love analysis. We have a curious mindset. We want to understand why things are happening. I think we could work until midnight, because there's always another level of analysis that you could drill down to, another level of detail. So at Michael Hill, we try to look widely across a range of attributes to understand why product has sold and not sold, and to understand where our risks and opportunities are going forward. And this is a period where you work quite closely with the buyer, because although you'll be running the analysis, once you analyze the range together, you come up with a list of questions that need to be answered. And it's really in answering those questions that you understand how to build a better range going forward.
Yeah, I always use the words question and challenge, and it's part of that SWOT analysis. So we would we're in our summer season now. We're starting to work on our next summer season, so we would be probably about 9 months out where we start to work, and it's that questioning and challenging what's happened. What could we have done better as well. So I think those are always those 2 key words within that pre-season analysis and planning.
And lots of things and lots of metrics to look at. So firstly, it's your sales numbers, it's what drove the margin. So you might have had something that sold really well, but didn't actually deliver on profits. It's about the sell through. So how fast did something sell? Did you sell out? Do you need to buy more? Did you buy too much of something? Or was it just a bad selling item? And why was it bad? Was it color? Was it the shape? Was it the wrong trend? And things like sizes. So in an apparel business, in a footwear business, there's so much learning and so much opportunity that you find every season when you're looking at how did my style sell versus how much stock we had, what is our opportunity going forward on sizing, your price points. So there's lots and lots of different angles you take when you start analyzing your products and you analyze your performance. Where did something sell? Your stores, your top stores, did they have enough? Didn't they have enough? So you can get ready. That whole midnight, you know, some of us know all about that midnight thing, and not because you're made to do it, because you want to know. You just want to
understand.
So you're like, I actually missed that. I missed doing that part of the role. Now I don't
keep doing that. So that's a really interesting time. It's busy because you've got all this work to do, and you're always working at pace. And a life in retail is about being at pace. You're always sort of running. There's no time to breathe. And then when you do breathe, you're like, what am I doing?
Things gone wrong.
But it's really interesting because that's when you get into the guts and the meat of what worked, what didn't work, and really truly understanding why and being honest about why, so that you can fix the problem and do it better next time.
I agree. It's always an exciting time, I think, that pre-season, because you get that excitement of those opportunities, and wow, if we'd have only done that and known that at the time, imagine what we could have done as well. So I think it really is an exciting.
But even greater, like when you see, particularly in size curves, I have this thing for size curves. But yeah.
But like you mentioned, I just written size down, because if you weren't going to mention it, it's so important.
When you actually find what you've actually see the work that you've done, and you've implemented a change, and you've implemented something differently, and you actually see the results of that. So you know, like you can see we actually sent enough of that stock, and then you can see how it's impacted on the curves and how much it's improved. That's a really great feeling, because yeah, you're seeing the fruits of your labor as well.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about the pre-season. I'd like to go on now and talk about the in-season trading element of the planner's role, and to talk about some of the trading decisions that planners make. So, you know, in the middle of the season, what are the sort of trading decisions that planners are making?
So that's really, that's where that inventory optimization really comes into the fore. So it's obviously identifying your departments that may well be trading incredibly well, understanding if you can get more stock, if you can pull stock forward so you can maintain that momentum, and obviously maximize the gross profit you're getting there. And then on the converse, if you've got departments that aren't performing, what can we do with that inventory? Can we cancel out? Can we push out? If we can't, we have to mark it down. What's the best way to mark it down? Is it promotional? Do we need to clear it as soon as possible? If it's knitwear going into the summer, you've got an end life, so you have to quit it as quickly as you possibly can. So there's lots of decisions around that all through that in-season trading. It's really key in terms of that managing of inventory, and therefore maximizing your profit.
And allocation.
Yes, that's the other point.
Yeah, that being able to allocate, and because it's a very quick way to fix a lot of things that could be wrong, is fixing your stock levels and inventory levels in stores.
Yes.
So you're asking questions about, have we just not got the stock there? Is it not in the right place? Is there more that we can do with the stock that we've got?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And because I want to go on and talk about at the end of the season and the exit strategy. Okay. And I wonder if you can just explain, what is an exit strategy and how does that differ from what you talked about, Lindsay's promotion? So the strategic promotion that you might have planned for, what's the difference between the exit strategy and that strategic promotion?
Nope, you go, Natalie.
So I was just going to say, I think to touch on what Lindsay was saying, you are thinking about your exit strategy all through the season as you trade. So it's constantly on your mind, and you're constantly weighing up whether you can take decisions in season in your weekly trade actions that will save some of the cash that you'll lose when you get to that exit strategy at the end of the season. Because when you get to the end of the season, what you really need to do is you need to be exiting out of all of the inventory that needs to make way for the new inventory. So obviously the new season stock is on its way or maybe here, and you need to make room for that and make way for that, and to make sure you keep that stock turning in stores, particularly in fashion. It's so important to have that freshness. And if the first time you've taken action on price on that inventory is at the end of the season, you probably have to take a lot stronger action than if you've done something in season. So if, for example, knitwear is not selling very well because you've had unseasonably warm weather, we love the weather as a reason for this. It would be good to run a 20% off promotion in season for a couple of weeks to try to clear some of it and go 50% off at the end of season. You'll lose less money.
Because you've got more time to sell it, and people know they've got more time to wear that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the important thing about promotions is that you take the discount at the point of sale. You're not devaluing the inventory, so it's much less harmful from a profitability point of view, and easier to flex on and off than an end of season markdown, which is usually permanent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we have in our audience people who have got lots of years of experience. We've got people who are in the sort of beginnings of their career. We've got people who have not yet entered merchandise planning as a career and are looking at that. So to make sure that we covered everything that people wanted to know about, we sent out a little bit of a questionnaire. So the question that most people wanted an answer to was, what key skills or attributes would you say make a great planner?
You must love numbers. Have a very inquisitive mind and want to question and challenge and analyze and just keep on drilling down, digging deeper until you get to to that answer.
Anything else? I think one of the things about planners that I've always valued is that most people tend to either be very creative, very good with words, very good with numbers. And I actually think as a planner, you have to have all three. We have to be so creative in our problem solving. We obviously have to have a good grasp of numbers, and that's the most important thing. But we have to be very good at communicating as well. Because we're one of the pivotal departments, we have touch points with every other division, I'd say, and your verbal and written communication have to be really good for you to execute what you want to execute effectively.
And I think it's important is your attention to detail as well. So that ability to be able to very quickly, and you often find you get, and I still do, even though I manage a big team of people, I still find myself getting stuck in the detail because it's just my natural style of trying to understand. And I think it's important as a planner because you're curious and you're interested and you want to get to the bottom of it and you want the truth and you want, so you're getting, it's that attention to detail. But I also find like if you don't think you have a thing for numbers, don't let that scare you either, because I've never thought I had a thing for numbers either. I mean, I was a buyer and then got into a buying role, a junior buying role, and very, very quickly, without having a planner, figured out how much I loved the planning side of it and quickly became a planner. So, you might have it in your brain that, you have to be good at math and you have to be good, but have to be an accountant, but that's not, I don't believe that's true at all. It's about, it just clicked for me. And I find with a lot of people, coming out of visual merchandising or often make great merchandise planners. It's just that curiosity, the attention to detail. And yeah, if you're okay with like looking at spreadsheets and numbers, obviously, some people can't deal with that, but yeah, it's just funny because I never thought I'd ever be doing a job like this. And then it's like taking me across the world. So interesting how it pans out, I suppose.
So one of the things that people wanted to know is, how do you get started in the industry? What do you need to do to land your first job and get your foot in the door, so to speak?
I think I was just going to say, actually, from what Tanya said, that I'm not sure any of us could hand on heart say we planned this trajectory into planning. People that have been planners for a while tended to have fallen into it, but I absolutely love that people are now planning to join a career in planning. I think that's fantastic. So I knew that I had an analytical mind, and I knew that I loved retail as well. So it kind of seemed like the perfect fit for me, and I fell into an entry-level role at Arcadia. I actually did psychology as a degree. So please don't be put off if your degree hasn't been maths or analysis or business, because that's absolutely not the only way into a planning career. I think if you're willing to kind of start in an entry-level role and really learn the ropes from the ground up, I would say it's open to everyone.
Anyone.
Agree. Yeah, I did a chemistry degree, so I mean, slightly small, but I hated the experiments, hated them, and loved the analysis, and so fell into it just through talking to a friend who was now an allocator at House of Fraser, and I thought, oh, that actually sounds exactly what I love to do. So, and it has absolutely been that, and again, and so. It brought me to Australia from the UK, so I would never have imagined that I would have been able to travel with my job and all of this. Well.
And it's interesting, another popular question was about career progression and how far planning can take you. And I don't think we mean necessarily geographically, although you can work anywhere in the world.
Yes.
But, what is the career progression for once you've been a planner for a while? What's next, and how far can it take you?
All the way to the CEO chair.
Yeah.
You absolutely can go to the top. I'm sure these guys would agree. It sets you up so well for understanding all of the areas of a retail business, because it's such a pivotal role to millions. You know what you were going to say. Yeah,
no, I was going to absolutely say, I think we used to, when I first started in the UK, used to say there was never a planner over 40. So when I got to 40, I was like, yahoo, we do exist. So I'm not too sure what happened there. But no, as you progress, you become much more aware of everything within retail. I think, I don't know whether this has been a COVID thing for the last 2 years, but I had become much more heavily involved in the supply chain, understanding that. Prior to that, I did, when we were at the Suzanne Group, there was the planning manager at Suzanne. We went direct with all our suppliers, so I actually went to China and worked for all of that. So it's opened up a lot of different areas and different avenues that I could now, if I wanted to, start to move into different areas as well. So as you move up, more and more is now opened up and exposed as well, which is really good and very exciting. So it's you're always being challenged in different ways.
Yeah,
but you don't get pigeonholed as a planner. I would never say you would ever become pigeonholed as a planner.
Oh, hold on.
Really good leader, because you've been leading people for a really long time, and that's what means you can move into any area of the business, because it's no longer about your skill set as a planner, it's about your skill set as a leader. And I think this career sets you up really well for that.
And that collaborating, how you learn to collaborate in the role, because as you say, you're dealing with marketing and online and buyers, and you're dealing with personal, that constant exercising, that problem solving brain.
Yeah, and I think as well, on the geographical question, I know it wasn't meant as the geographical question, but one of the things I've found is that we are, as a career, we are always in demand. Planning is always in demand. And I've lived in the UK, the Middle East and Australia from doing planning careers, because each of those markets has needed planners. And actually, I've found we're really lucky, but also it's such a unique skill set that there's never been an oversupply of.
There's not. No,
we're always in demand, so we're really lucky in that.
And there is still a skill shortage, isn't it? And it's a global skill shortage.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's why we, you know, and one of the reasons to do this is try to encourage more people to come into the industry and look at it as a career, because it's a really fantastic career.
Yeah, and probably worth saying that that's the best entryway into it as a career, Beverly, right? Is your training course.
Oh, I'll give you that fiver later, Natalie.
Only 5.
No, I'm big into training. The training is my thing. It's my passion. It's about, you know, getting the right. It's about capability development, and that's what, you know, what my business is about, really. So yeah,
and internships are great in that way as well, because you can kind of try it before you commit. So the intern that we had wasn't sure between a career in buying or planning, and the internship just let her see what was happening day to day in the office and helped her to understand which way she wanted to go.
And your intern, Tanya, she came from that finance background, and she absolutely loved it, and it really confirmed for her that this was the right thing for her to do. She, you know, she was a member of the CPA, qualified accountant, but was a bit bored with that whole accountancy thing, and just felt she wanted to be able to combine that, you know, the fashion and the sort of the numbers side.
And that's the great thing about the job is, again, you never know what you're faced with today. Like, you actually never know. And that might freak people out, but it's also something about, so wonder what I have to, so what problem do I solve today? What is it going to be? Because nothing is ever the same. Like so you've got this critical part, you've got this sort of loop that goes over and over and over, and pre-season and in-season and exit, and you go round and round. But within that, there's just new problems to solve, there's new challenges you face, there's exciting things on the way, there's the agility to flip and change, and you know what you decided yesterday, we're going to shake it up a little bit. So it's very exciting, very exciting in career. And what else is I always find it's the people who make the best of that opportunity they have that make fabulous careers, because you can go, as you say, anywhere with it, but it's about taking the opportunity you have and running with it and doing with it what you want, because you own it. You own your own that career in the space, and because it's so demand, you know, there's so much demand for it, and it's such a special skill. You pretty much can make the best life for yourself out of it.
Okay. So before I open up to the audience to see if they want to ask any questions, what I'd like to ask you is, what does merchandise planning look like in 5 to 10 years from now? And how will sort of AI or machine learning impact the role of the planner?
That's a really interesting one, Beverly. I had a conversation with my CEO just this week, because he was talking about AI being used in another area of our business. And he was explaining it to someone. And he said, this AI, it does what Nat's team do, but they have people that do it. And I said, you're implying that we're going to be replaced with AI in the future? And he said, no, absolutely not, because in your job, there's an art form. Yes. An element of it is an art form. So I think there are elements of the role where AI could really help, and I do think we will get more automated over the last 5 years, and that's probably one of the things that's changed. We use systems more than we ever used to. We do still rely heavily on Excel for the majority of the time, but we do use systems, and I think there are some places that it could be useful, but I do think there's always a role for a planner in order to make sure that that system is being used in the best possible way, because there is an art and there is an instinctive element, and that because of the partnership with buying and design, actually, there's an element that the human side won't ever get replaced.
Yeah.
I would say there is a future for that AI and machine learning, but given that we are very short of supply of planners anyway, that will just take some of that. The the jobs out of the day-to-day that are just doing and you're not learning, and then it will give us the time to actually continue to do those deeper dives and use that instinct and that gut and that decision making based on the information we get.
That's exactly right. Exactly.
And that's a good point, Lindsay, because I've found that whenever we've implemented a system, it's not like suddenly as a planning team, half our job, we don't have anything to do it. That system allows us more time to go deeper on stuff that we weren't doing before.
That we've just been skimming the surface on at the moment. Yeah.
So you'll be able to make better quality decisions.
Correct, with that information, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and who knows, like with the freed up doing that stuff that could be automated, what else you'll be able to uncover, or what else you'll still be seeing. And I don't think it's going to happen as quickly as, we'd like some of that automation to happen. 5 years ago, you could have asked the same question and we would have thought, amazing things, but here we are still chugging away on our Excel.
With your Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'd like to do now is open it up to our audience, and if you want to put the question in the chat, please do, or if you'd like to open up your come off mute, please feel free to ask our panel any questions that you may have.
Beverly, hi, it's Jeff here. If I could open up the questions, if you don't mind. I think one of the things that always interests me is the reluctance of, and it seems to be quite a bit within the Australian companies, the reluctance to go onto integrated planning systems and move out of the Excel world. Why do you think there is still this reluctance and hesitation to get proper planning systems, which to Lindsay's point of view, when you integrate it with AI and you use it to help in your forecasting, it can make such a big difference in a planner's life? Why do you believe there is still so much hesitation on doing it?
Cash, maybe?
I would.
I think, I don't know, I think it's quite an expensive, it's a very expensive, these systems, well, in my experience, and I haven't had a lot on system integration, maybe just a bit, but I do know that they are massively expensive. And I think companies have been spending their money on online and getting their online platforms up and running, and then COVID, and there's all these conflicting priorities of what's important. And I know at Beston, like I'm working at Beston Less now, we've got a great planning process, amazing planners, but really stuck on the systems. So that's the first thing. And we are now looking now at implementing systems, which is a very, very, very exciting time, because it's really fun to get involved in that sort of building of the system and how we integrate it into our business going forward. Then I think the second time is often people, because Excel is so customizable, you make it how you want it. It's often difficult to take people along on the change where you have, this is how it works and it can only work this way. Where in Excel, you get very, very smart people. My gosh, I work with some incredibly smart people on Excel here who can make Excel do anything for you. And then it's almost that reluctance to let that go and have this tool which like does it this way, and that's it situation. So that's my thought.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think there is a reluctance by businesses to spend millions of dollars on a system when, from their point of view, we can use Excel for free. So we've just implemented a system here at Michael Hill, and the other thing for me is that the merchandise planning system is only ever as good as the data that the business can feed into it as well. And that's been one of the big sticking points for us. The rest of your in-house systems and information have to be in really good shape for a merchandise planning system to have any value. Whereas in Excel, we just end up manipulating the data and doing a big lookup and making it all fit. So, there's a lot of hurdles to overcome. I'm totally advocating the use of merchandise planning systems, though, to be fair. I think they are really worthwhile. But there are a lot of barriers to overcome, I think.
Well, I come from a completely opposite side because I've always used merchandise planning systems. So actually just about we're investigating one we have at the moment has just come to end of life. So we're about to replace it. But the business that I work for has always invested in proper planning systems and integrated solutions. Which is it's very good. So everybody works in the same way. Although, and it is interesting when you get newer people in and they're like, wow, no, we used to doing this in Excel, but you get that same systematic approach, the same information, but our data is very, very clean. So we're very lucky there.
That's good. We were talking about this as a planning team recently, actually, and saying that in the early stages of your career, it was actually quite valuable to do everything in Excel because you understood the formulas.
Yes.
Rather than having a system work it out for you. So I think there's some value in both ways.
I think you're quite right in that, because one of the things that I did for all my years of employing planners, whenever I interviewed someone, I actually gave them a blank piece of paper and said, right, write down the formula for closing stock for me. And it's interesting because people who have grown up in an automated system don't understand what it's doing, whereas people who have grown up in Excel will understand it straight away. But I think one of the things I have found over the time, and Lindsay, you would know this, is the benefit of having the integration of your planning system into your other systems. So it's not only the work within the system and what you can do in Excel. And yeah, Tanya, I know how well Best and Less do their Excel because I've had a bit of time with them as well. But that is great for planning, but it doesn't then integrate that back into your other forecasting systems and your logistics and supply chain and those sorts of things. So I've just found it very interesting that businesses do still hesitate. And when you talk about the cost, I always say to them, so how much stock did you write off this year and what did it cost you? Oh, right. So that was a few millions, but you don't have the money to buy a proper planning system, which is always an interesting argument. Anyway, thank you very much for that.
Good, very good question. Thank you, Jeff.
I have a question here from Debbie Pratt, and she would like to know, how do you think the focus on sustainability will change the role of buying and planning in the future?
That's a great question, and I think it's not even in the future. I don't know about you guys, but it's affecting us now. So I think this is our next big challenge. I do think that there is an element of a really good planning team having responsibility for sustainability anyway, because if you have an efficient inventory position, there is less wastage. So I think we've always been at the forefront of sustainability if you look at it that way.
I love that, Natalie.
It's like bearers for sustainability. But for us, it's really shifted in terms of our production and our sourcing, and challenged the suppliers that we work with and the processes that we use and the materials that we use. And actually there are kind of cost implications for that, lead time implications, a whole new supply base to source, which throws up a lot of challenges. But for me, it's kind of exciting because it's the next challenge for us, but it's also the way that we can contribute to helping the world, because let's face it, retail is a pretty wasteful industry to be in and a pretty hollow industry at times. So it's kind of important to really champion that amongst buying and planning teams.
Great.
And for me, even with my team, it's even starts at your desk. So about the paper, like even just paper, if you think you're printing your replans, and I love a printed replan and I can sit and draw all over it. I can still come from that very old school, but trying to be conscious about it, even just in your day-to-day, like let's not print the replan. Let's have a look at it on the screen. And from our production, our CEO and his point about, Best and Less being a value retailer, and, it's a t-shirt for $3 and how that's just so easily let go of. It's also about things, how do we source the hangers that are now no longer plastic? How do we get rid of plastic Kimballs? So the things that that connect to your tickets, like how do we actually get out of all this what we've done in our supply chain as well by taking actual what are they called, pallets off the floor. We actually use a thing called a peptainer, which is a reusable box like plastic box almost that can get decompressed and goes back into that cycle. So we're not sending cardboard to stores from our DC, and we actually, you know, getting rid of all that. The stores don't have to recycle. We do all of that at our DC. Reusing the peptainers. How do we get even the plastic that suppliers wrap the clothes in that go onto the sorter? How do those plastic more recyclable plastic? So it's not just about the cotton and where you source it from, but how do we use dyes? I mean, the buyers are working on which types of vegetable dyes can we use that don't cause destruction to the environment. If you think about denim and how much water gets used in the manufacture of denim, it's about how we do those things. So it's a very, very interesting time about how do we think differently and out the box on every little piece of, do I really need to print that thing?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and even small things like, you know, changing the tape that we use in our DC from plastic to paper tape. And then I having been there, so well, we need to get our suppliers to be doing the same thing. So those small things, how we package, making, you know, getting rid of as much plastic as we can. We don't have to have garments individual poly bags. You use different poly bags that are recyclable. So yeah, at every touch point, it's that questioning and challenging. What can we do differently? How can we be better here? So I think that's always at the forefront now with that sustainability, is that challenge constantly.
Yeah, excellent. Some great answers there. So has anybody else got any questions that they'd like to ask our panel? No, anybody? Okay. Well, I just want to say to Tanya, Natalie and Lindsay, thank you so much. It has been a fantastic discussion, and I hope that everybody has enjoyed it as much as I have. And so it only remains me to say thank you once again, and a round of applause from me. I hope that our panel, I hope that our audience have enjoyed it as much as I have. I will put this up later on, maybe on Monday, and I hope you all have a lovely weekend.
Thank you. Thanks
so
for
much.
having me.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.